Welcome to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast, where we dive deep and answer the ultimate question: how did you hack into tech sales? Each week, we bring you inspiring stories, proven strategies, and insider tips from top performers who've cracked the code to break into tech sales and thrive. Whether you're just starting out, making a career pivot, or ready to level up, this is your go-to space for actionable advice and real-world success stories. Let's crack the code together, because hacking into tech sales isn't just a dream, it's your next move. Now with your host, the founder of Tech Sales Funnels and the tech sales hacker himself, Davison De Silva.
All right, welcome everyone to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast. This is Davison De Silva, the tech sales hacker. Today I have a really special guest, Grant. I'm not sure how to exactly say his last name. I'm going to have him do it. But he is from Microsoft. And we met at Microsoft when I was working at Microsoft. Great guy. We talked a couple of times. He has his own show and he does all sorts of cool stuff on LinkedIn as well. We want to hear his story. We want to hear how he hacks to tech sales. And then I guarantee it's going to inspire a lot of people who are listening to this today. So let's go ahead and bring Grant to the stage. Hey, Grant.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
I was going to pronounce your last name. I'm going to let you do it.
Hey, no problem. So, yeah, the J really throws folks off.
Yeah.
My last name is Melstead. So,
okay.
Norwegian is the where I'm from, Norway. Norwegian ancestry. So that's where the J comes in. So I've heard it all. I've heard Mjelstead, Mjelstad. So.
Hey,
yeah.
I gotta say with my name, like I have seen so many variations of my name, you'd not believe it. But it's all good, man. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining today. We're super excited. This podcast is inspiring and helping a lot of people to get a better visibility of tech sales, and you work on the number one tech sales organization in the world, Microsoft. Super excited to have you here. So first of all, before we dive into the question, who is Grant in general, high level? Tell us a little bit more about you, and then we're going to go into the details of how did you get into tech sales.
Sure. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I mean, who am I? I'm based out of Fargo, North Dakota. So I live in the Midwest. I've been at Microsoft for over 8 years. And actually I started with the company back in 2016, right out of college. So that's kind of my, we talk about how eventually we'll talk, right? How I got into Microsoft, how I got into tech sales. In a sense, it was kind of by chance where I was willing to do a hard job that maybe not a lot of people want to do. And that's how I got in. So like I said, I mean, I'm based in the Midwest. I sell our security solutions to public sector customers, so state, local government. Married, I've got 2 kids. I'm a girl dad. I love the outdoors, love to do anything, outside related, whether it's going to the lake cabin or
fishing the ice. Do you do that, Fargo?
All that type of stuff.
Nice.
Unfortunately, I'm a long ways away from mountains. Usually have to get to Montana or Colorado if I'm going to go to the mountains, but I love to snowboard, ski, all the board sports. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's cool. So you do a lot of the camping where you put a tent and then dig a hole and then fishing on the ice and all that.
Oh yeah, ice fishing. It's here we are now, of course, in November. The weather is still nice in the Midwest. We don't have any snow yet. We've only had a couple days below freezing, so the lakes are still open. They don't have ice on them yet, but once that happens and we can get out on the ice and drill the hole and drop the line down the hole, that's pretty fun. It's a lot of fun.
It's awesome. I asked that question because I have a lot of Microsoft friends in Fargo, and they talked about fishing the ice all the time. So someday it's on my bucket list. I'm gonna do it. You said security. Now, these days, everyone talks about AI, right? And everyone talks about data. Uh, and and sometimes people even forget security, but you gotta secure that data. So we would love to talk about that a little bit more. But first, tell us a little bit more about. You said it was kind of by chance, which is really I'm interested to hear more about now.
Hmm.
How did you hack into tech sales? Tell us the process. You can take as much time as you want,
Sure.
step by step.
Sure. So yeah, back when I was in college, I went to North Dakota State University, and I was actually studying finance. So I thought I
Right.
was going to be in finance, insurance and investment sales is what I thought. So I was going to be a salesperson, right? Because I liked to interact with customers. I liked to solve problems. And when I was in college, I'd done collegiate athletics. I'd ran track and field, competed in decathlon. So I was very process driven, very committed and focused to like training, following a regiment, staying committed, and then obviously performing like at a very high level. And I felt like that type of athletic background really translated into being in sales, right? Where
Mm,
in sales, it's all about building a process, refining the process, staying committed to it. Obviously solving problems, doing hard things, especially when you think of like prospecting and overcoming
yeah.
objections and trying to close deals. So there was just like this natural transition that, hey, I was probably going to be in sales, right? And like I said, finance was what I went to school for. So I figured, hey, I was going to be a life insurance and investment salesman. Um, and when I was taking some sales classes at the university, at
Mm-hmm.
that time they had come to the sales program, come to the sales class. This was Microsoft Recruiters, and we're like, hey,
Oh,
we're opening an inside sales center in Fargo, which is where I was going to
interesting.
college, and we're looking for recent college grads to come and essentially do sales development work, right? So at the time, it was call Azure trials. So the
Oh,
back in 2016, right? Azure was really starting to kind of become something that was more familiar. Public cloud. Obviously, we were trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to go and compete with AWS? Um,
mm,
so they hired a bunch of us recent college grads to smile and dial, 80 to 100 people.
I'm that.
And that was how I got into Microsoft. It was a
Yeah.
job that I knew in talking and working with my dad. He's like, hey, I mean, if you can have the opportunity to get in with a corporation like Microsoft while living in the Midwest, while living in Fargo, and I wanted to stay close to home, um, you gotta do it. You gotta take a chance, right? So it was like, hey, I was willing to roll up my sleeves and get in the door and say, sure, I don't know a lot about technology other than how I use it like as an end user. I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
know how to sell to businesses, how to sell to companies. Obviously didn't know like the intricacies of the Microsoft tech stack at that point in time. But I was willing and I was eager to say, hey, okay, I'm going to reach out to folks who started Azure trials, and I'm going to
Okay.
be good at asking questions. Hey, why did you do this? What are you interested in? Tell me about your business. Tell me about like kind of just basic sales stuff. I mean, so kind of a long story short, not short necessarily, but that's how I got into the company. And 8 years later, I've had a whole variety of different roles in different business groups, SMB, SMC, Azure. Now I'm modern work security focused. Kind of been all over the place, but it's always been in sales.
Nice, nice. So 8 years. That was your first job in tech sales, Microsoft,
Yep.
and then you spend that. Wow, that's amazing. Because a lot of people when they're transitioning into tech sales, they sometimes they start in smaller organization or a startup, and then but you went all in. It's a great opportunity. Amazing to be part of a brand new team. So a lot of people listening to this, sometimes they see those job descriptions and things. Sometimes those big organizations they're starting a brand new team,
Yeah.
and they're bringing people that there's it. They Grant mentioned about his background. Athlete and then competitive nature,
Hmm.
willing to smile and dial. Like sometimes that's all that it takes, right, to get the foot at the door.
Yeah.
How many? You say it was a bunch of people? Was there like a program, like a
Yeah.
cohort? They hired like a
We
bunch
were,
of.
I mean, they, over the first couple years, really, when we were expanding the inside sales model, based out of Fargo originally. I mean, there's a couple hundred of us, right?
Wow.
That they hired, and we were, myself, of course, was a Fargo native, right? But I mean, when we were getting
Mm-hmm.
folks from all over the country that were
Now
moving to
they'll
Fargo,
fly to they'll move to
yep,
Fargo.
to do the job, um, and I think then we expanded inside sales, um, into into different locations around the country. Atlanta, um, Las Colinas, I know is was a big kind of inside sales hub, right? That was spun up, um, but it all kind of
Yep.
originated in Fargo.
Okay. Now started on the cold land of Fargo.
That's right.
That's awesome.
But hey, you know what? I mean, I think from a Microsoft business perspective, it was a place where they knew there was some good recruiting from universities,
Yeah.
and the reason Microsoft was even in Fargo was there was a company called Great Plains Software,
Oh yeah.
um, that Microsoft acquired, in the early 2000s. So that's why Microsoft even had a location in Fargo. And I think
Mm,
from a business perspective, it's like, hey, this is a place where there's a ton of really sharp individuals. These are people that are, I think, just like kind of Midwest blue collar, like grounded to, hey, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do what I need to do at all costs. Right. And it kind of, again, ties into this like athletic background, the competitive piece.
nice.
And like cost of living is relatively low, right, in the Midwest. So from Microsoft perspective, like, hey, what a perfect place to kind of launch a new business. Really, it was this demand response SMB type of business, and hey, we'll bring some folks in, try to obviously get, people young in career, kind of get a kickstart and see what happens. Um, so it was a cool time. Learned a ton, of course, and really that's what springboarded me into like where I am today in the company in SMC, right?
Nice. Nice. We'll talk about that because if people are interested in Microsoft, he dropped a few words here, SMC, SMB, and all that. We can probably dive into that. The Before I go into the actual role, how was the interview process though? Like it was like a bunch of interviews, a sales
Yeah.
play.
I
How did
mean,
they select all those people?
yeah. I mean, so like back initially when I first, my first interviews to Microsoft, this is a long time ago, of course, but I mean, at that time, like it was intense. I mean, I had, kind of a first couple of phone screening type of interviews,
Mm-hmm.
which I remember one specifically. I was sitting in the parking lot at our track training facility, and I kind of had to make the decision of like, do I want to compete in a fifth year of athletics because I had a fifth year of
Oh, really,
eligibility,
really still college,
or
huh?
am I going to get into the workforce? And I remember taking the call from the recruiter, like I said, in the parking lot of the facility. And I knew at that point, like, okay, I'm going to have to go talk with my coaches. I'm going to probably tell them like, hey, that I'm going to be done, competing at the end of this year. So I mean, there was, yeah, phone interviews, kind of phone screening type stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then there was at that point, it was all in person mainly, right? We hadn't
Okay.
gone hybrid at that point. So I went over to the Microsoft campus in town, I don't know, 15, 20 miles away from where I was on the collegiate campus, and had multiple, pretty intense interviews face to face with hiring managers, behavioral type interviews, role plays, just, I think it was three or four, like 30 to 40 minute, pretty
Okay.
intense sessions of just, trying to do the best I could and just answer obviously honestly, and talk about what I think I could do, and obviously kind of just tried to get them to be willing to take a chance on somebody who didn't have the tech background, but
Right.
was willing to do something maybe that not everybody wants to do, right?
Awesome. Yeah, and you mentioned that the beginning of the call, right? You're willing to do something hard that none of you want. Maybe some of your friends, even in college, you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that thing, and they had a chance to apply, maybe,
Yeah.
but you took the chance, and I'm pretty sure you don't regret. Um, that was an amazing story. I'm thinking here, man, you're like young, right? In
I mean,
college.
it's something that there's been many, many times over the years that I've, reflected on, like, man, what a what a pivotal point in my life where I decided, like,
Mhm.
hey, okay, am I gonna, forgo that last year of eligibility? Because at that point in time, like, that was my life. That was what I was doing. That's what I was passionate about. I was like, hey, I'm competing. I'm traveling all over the country. I'm trying to
Yes,
go to, Division I NCAA championships. Like, that was a big deal. Um,
totally.
and so to make that decision, like, okay, I'm gonna put that behind me, and I'm gonna step into corporate. I'm gonna, like, get into the real world. Um, that was a big decision, and it was something that I didn't take lightly, and I thought about a lot. But, like, I look back and, man, like, if I wouldn't have taken that opportunity when it came, I don't know if we'd be standing here right now. Honestly. Um,
Yeah,
so it's all about when you have opportunities, and when you push yourself, and you get a little uncomfortable, and you get in that scenario where you're like, hey, like I said, I didn't know really anything about tech, right? But I knew the foundations of sales. I knew, again, how to get committed, how to be always curious and just always willing to learn, and be willing to fail, right? Like, man, you just root yourself in, like, those foundational things. Good things will happen.
that's awesome. So I interviewed Robert, Robert Washington, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so he talked about his athletic background, military background, but also athletic, and you can see patterns here, right, of transferable skills. A lot of times people are like, hey, can I really learn this? You need to be open to learn. You need to be open to feedback. You need to be open to quickly correct and fix, and then move on and move forward and make goals and achieve goals. And that's something that comes naturally for an athlete, right?
yeah.
So if you are an athlete, you're listening to this, hey, you got like what it takes
Yeah.
actually to
Yeah, I
be
mean,
Texan.
that definitely helped. But you don't have to be an athlete, right, to have those types of
Oh, yep,
characteristics, types of traits. I think
love
what
that.
what I've always said, and what I've always kind of given people advice, feedback on, is, so I was actually really fortunate. I was able to go to Hawaii earlier in October.
Yes, I saw that.
I won
Congratulations.
Microsoft Gold Club.
It's awesome.
Was really, really honored, to win that award, and obviously, like, realized that, wow, okay, I guess I really am creating a lot of impact across my team and across the org. And that award, that recognition, really was like a moment where I, like, sat back and just, like, actually realized it, because when you're in your day to day, it's just, you're busy,
It's
and you're
part of
helping,
my
just
story.
doing
Just
stuff, right? But like, the reason I bring that up, or I talk about it, is, like, it takes time. It takes time to learn new things. It takes time to become an expert. It takes time to make impact, right? And I think a lot of folks aren't necessarily willing to invest the time to get
mm,
good at something. We live in a society that's all about instant gratification. Hey, the grass is greener somewhere else, right? And
yeah,
okay, that's fine. I'm not talking down to that mentality, right? I'm just saying what I've always thought, and my perspective has always been of, hey, if I'm going to actually give this a chance, if I'm going to actually, like, make sure every stone is unturned, I've explored all opportunities, I've exhausted the ability to try to do more. Like if I don't give it enough time, whether it's, and really there's no, is it a year, 2 years, 3 years? I mean, I did that kind of smile and dial type of role for over 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And in that time period, I had a lot of colleagues that, hey, they went and did something else, or it's, I can do more than this. Okay. And that's fine. But for me, it was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to get to be the best, appointment setter, because that's kind of what I was doing, right? I was trying to book
Yeah.
meetings for other salespeople. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be the best that I can be at this specific thing. And then obviously once I get to a point where like I really don't feel like there's any more learning, any more growth opportunities, then that's when I start to look for something else, right? And it's okay, now I'm ready for that next role. Well, I've already started to kind of do it. I've got the mentors in place. I'm starting to do that type of work anyways. Well, now like you go back to interviews. Now when I interviewed for the next role at Microsoft, if I can get the hiring manager to buy into, to understand, and to see that I'm kind of already doing that next job,
Mm,
I'm a natural fit for, hey, I'm going to slide right into the business. There's going to be low risk of, there's a long time for somebody to ramp up. Like now
mm-hmm.
that really solidifies myself as an extremely strong candidate as I move internally in the company, right?
It's
So it's again,
awesome.
there's all these strategies, and like I could talk about this for days and tell stories. Um, but again, it's like it's viewing this in the longer term picture of like, man, I mean, even when I started, I was like, did I think I'd be here 8 years down the road? I mean, maybe like I'd tell myself, yeah, I want to have a career there, but like it's hard to really think about and put yourself in that future state. But if you
Mm-hmm.
can do it and you can stay committed to the things that that move the needle every day, you're willing
Basics.
to continue to roll up your sleeves, always be learning, constantly curious, willing to help others. Like you just do those foundational things, I can guarantee you'll be successful.
I love that, and I love that you started Microsoft, and as everyone can hear, he's clearly doing well. He just got recognized by one of the top performers in the organization, um, and he managed his way to hack into different roles inside of Microsoft because some people stay on the same role and they're stuck. They don't know how to move. In fact, I'm looking here on your LinkedIn. You had, let's see, one, two, three, maybe four roles within Microsoft in the 4 years. Now, that takes a skill. Not many people can do it. And you started talking about it. So since you just have one job in tech sales and you grew internally, tell us a little bit more. How did you hack into the? You
Hmm.
start talking about being presentable to the hiring manager. How did you hack into all those different roles within the organization?
Yeah.
How did you get to where the position you are
Yeah.
now? Yeah.
I mean, I think I've always taken the perspective of I want to think about and understand what leaders 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of tiers ahead of me, what are they thinking about? What makes
Mm,
a difference for them? What type of impact are they trying to create and deliver? Right? Because if I can put myself in that mindset, then I really start to realize, okay, where can I make true impact in the business? How can I maybe put up some blinders and not get caught up in some of the just day-to-day kind of noise that comes up? Because it's like
mm,
it's a very busy environment. There's a lot going on. You've got, customer things you're working on. You've got internal meetings. You've got deadlines you're trying to hit. You've got, trainings you need to keep up with. There's new product information constantly coming out, right? So it's like, we joke about sometimes like working at Microsoft's kind of like dog years, where it's like, okay, I've been here for 8, but then man, if you times that by what, 7, 7, 8, I mean, it's like I've maybe in another organization, I've been there 30 plus years, right? For
I
just all,
love it.
oh, I know, right? I mean, I've shaved my head, like, because it is. It's fast paced. You have to be comfortable with change. If you're not comfortable with change, it's going to be very difficult to stay in it, right? But to go back to your question of like, how do you hack into the other roles? How do you move about the organization? It's really getting a clear picture and understanding of what are the actual things that I can have impact on. How can I move the needle, right, in whatever it is I'm trying to do? And then how can you show it too? How can you talk about it? How can you present it up the chain? Because I know that obviously, like, we want our work to speak for ourselves. You have to do great work. I mean, that's just like that's just the given.
Foundation.
You have to do great work, but then you have to be able to articulate, show, talk about, have obviously champions in your corner. You got to have your manager on board that's supporting you. You got to have your M2. You got to have your M3 who knows who you are. Like, that's the type of stuff where once you have those relationships, like, those are the people that are in your corner and really then advocating for, yes, your career growth, yes, the next move, the like, that's when all of a sudden these doors just start to open. You start getting connected with different people. All of a sudden, ooh, hey, here's something else, that man, that side project you were working on that, was outside of your job description that really
Yeah,
created positive impact. All of a sudden now, like, look at what that's become. Look at what maybe the next opportunity is, right?
I love it. And so being a good seller, foundational, right? And then you have to be able to build those relationships, navigate the corporate, uh, even politics, right? In every organization is different, every leadership is different, so you have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And then Grant mentioned getting outside of the, your regular thing that you do as sales. I know you do like something really nice, like you teach, you have your own podcast. I think you do all sorts of um, informational presentations about the products of Microsoft. So that's getting visibility.
Right.
Clients, you jump on the call, you become more like a trusted advisor,
Oh,
and
exactly.
other sellers might not be doing that, right? So you stands out, right?
I mean, it's trying to figure out, like, what do I want my brand to be, right? And that's something I think when I was, I really kind of thought about this, right? I really got to a point where I said I need to change my strategy, or I need to figure out how do I adapt in like the remote world, the remote environment.
Mm-hmm.
Because okay, we're not all sitting in the Fargo office. We're not going to the water cooler talking. I'm not networking with people in the cafeteria. Like, I don't have a lot of opportunities to see or interact with people outside of maybe like my team or my pod on a very regular basis. And when you think of career growth, you think of, how do you network, how do you move inside the organization? Obviously, we all know it's not always what you know, it's who you know, right? And
Mm-hmm.
obviously how you're perceived, and how you interact with, how you treat, like people, right? I mean, that's just what it is at the end of the day. And so back in the beginning of the pandemic, all of a sudden, hey, everybody works from home. We don't see each other anymore. We don't go to conferences. We don't, we're not on site with customers. I had this kind of epiphany or realization where I was in a different house, not the one I'm in right now, and I had a basement office at that point. And I just said, I really like to share information. I like to solve problems, answer questions. And this Microsoft ecosystem is so complex, so vast.
Mm-hmm.
Telling customers, I'm telling them about our stuff, telling them how it works, the value that we add. Every time I have a conversation with a customer, they're always just like, oh, this is great. I'm learning a ton. I didn't know this. And I had this realization that, okay, I've got this home office set up. I've got the cameras. Because I wanted to create a good audio video experience for my customers. I got a good camera, microphone, lights, this whole thing. I said, man, this would be out of my comfort zone. But what happens if I started sharing some of this same stuff I talk with customers on a daily basis? I
Nice,
share it to the LinkedIn network,
nice.
right? So I started, posting and, making some talking head videos. And met up with a buddy. I'm like, hey, we should make a little podcast, talk about Microsoft tech, right? So started doing this, and over the last couple of years, like, yeah, I've gained a really strong following. I've got to network and meet a lot of really cool people.
Celebrity now,
I mean,
right?
that's kind
You
of how
show
we
up.
met, right? I mean, that's how
Yeah,
we met. It's like, hey,
yeah,
I'm putting myself out there. I'm being vulnerable. I'm over the I'm not worried about, ooh, how do I look? How do I sound? Kind of that imposter syndrome, right? Because
yeah.
that's very real. It's something that, hey, I was able to overcome that. Some days you still deal with it, right? But you're again able to overcome and do hard things, and then all of a sudden you start to see the impact. Yep, you meet new people and they say, "Oh yeah, I feel like I know you. I've already seen you online." Or,
Yeah,
"Hey,
it
you
becomes
shared
good.
really great information about Microsoft Tech or about sales or leadership or whatever it is." Or, "Hey, I loved your story you told about, how collegiate athletics helped you be successful in sales," right? So again, now you're creating this brand and you're creating this influence and you're
Love it.
creating this awareness with my customers, but then also with the internal Microsoft ecosystem. I mean, there's 200,000 employees at Microsoft, and a lot of us use LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
that's a great place. I've been able to network with Microsoft people post pandemic, post we're all remote now. I've been able to
more.
network. I've been able to network with a lot of Microsoft people through LinkedIn.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. If you haven't listened to the last 30 minutes, we are like, you should go back to the beginning. Grant's story is amazing, but also he's amazing at what he does as a seller and his ability to build his own brand through LinkedIn, through his content creation. He's, I guarantee that he's well known inside of Microsoft on the partner ecosystem, but even outside, I guarantee there's people reaching out to him, even like with job offers and all that kind of stuff and opportunities, because he's putting himself out there and getting out of his comfort zone. It's huge. Everyone that listening to this, a lot of I love the interview today because it was more of who you are. It got you to where you are now, and your ability to navigate through the
Mm-hmm.
sales environment. It made you grow. So thank you so much. I told you the time was gonna go by
Oh
fast.
yeah, no, it flew by, and I mean, I feel like there's things that we could unpack and talk about more. I know, obviously, yeah. Today I did a lot of talking. Told my story. Hopefully, can
Yeah.
inspire people. Um, but usually when I interact with folks, I like to flip the script, right?
Yeah.
Where I love to listen. I mean, I like to ask.
Right.
The 80-20 rule. I mean, I want to ask the questions, but then I want to hear what they have going on, because that's a big thing that I'm passionate about. I mean, I've been a track and field coach now ever since I
Oh, nice.
graduated from college. I've been back, track and field coaching. So I love
Yeah.
coaching, I love mentorship. I love getting people to understand that the only limits really that are out there are ones that you put on yourself, right? And I feel like I've seen that in, like, I can really do just about anything I put my mind to if I'm willing to commit to it and I'm willing to do something that's maybe hard, something that not everybody wants to do. And I'm willing to, like, hey, we try things. If it doesn't work, okay, let's adjust and try something else, right? But continually, like, continue to get 1% better each day, put one foot in front of the other, and, like, just kind of roll up the sleeves and get after it, right? So yeah, I mean, you know, always happy to help individuals that are trying to get into the organization. Um, I heard a statistic that there's like 1 million people a month that apply for
Okay.
Microsoft.
Oh,
Now this
yeah.
is globally, right? This is globally. I mean,
Okay.
so like to
It's
get into
still.
Microsoft is very difficult, and a lot of it has to do with, hey, do you kind of know, who the players are? Do you know who the hiring managers are? Have you connected with people? Are
Yeah.
you starting to create some name recognition and familiarity?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what it's all about. So I mean, I've talked with a lot of friends, colleagues, people I've met that are trying to get in the organization. Always happy to help out.
It's
Do
awesome.
anything I can for folks. And yeah, this was a fun conversation. I
Oh,
appreciate the
that's really cool. I appreciate you opening up that window because if feel like you are qualified for a role, and if you see the role and your resume is matching and you did all the work, um, you know, maybe I'm not promising anything. Maybe Grant can review your resume and recommend you. I don't know, but that's how you hack into it, right? And then what he said towards the end, this mentality is also the mentality of the job seeker. You gotta keep trying, you gotta keep applying, you gotta keep finding new ways. It's not like a straight game; it's like more like a chess mastermind type of. I like to call hacking because I feel like
Right.
you self security. Like it's hard to break into it. You
Oh
have to
yeah.
know the codes, and you have to work extra hard to in order to break into an organization like Microsoft.
Yeah.
But um, um, yeah, amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Grant. That was awesome, man. I appreciate you making the time today.
Of course. Yeah. This was a ton of fun. Thanks for having me on.
That's cool. Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone listening to this today. Go to the beginning, and if you missed, you'll be glad that you listened to the whole thing. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast, where we crack the code and uncover the strategies to break into tech sales. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to hack their way into this exciting career. Remember, hacking into tech sales isn't just a goal, it's a mission. Let's keep hacking, learning, and winning together. Catch you next time.